Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if someone giving you advice is actually thinking about your problems, or just saying what they think they're supposed to say? Well, this new study might have a clue. Imagine your teacher or a friend giving you feedback. Are they truly engaged in helping you, or are they just going through the motions like a robot? This research dives into whether kids as young as 5 can spot when someone is acting on autopilot and what that means for their learning. Think about it like this. You show your parent a drawing and they say, "Oh, how lovely, I like all the pretty colors you used." Great, right? But then you hear them say the exact same thing to your sibling about their drawing. Suddenly, you might wonder if your drawing was really lovely or if your parent was just saying it because they weren't really paying attention. This is that tricky space between being thoughtful and just doing something automatically, like following a script. Scientists have known for a long time that we all have these two ways of acting. We can be deliberate and thoughtful, or we can be automatic and do things out of habit. Think about ordering coffee. You probably have a script for that. But when you are talking about something important with a friend, you are much more engaged. This is true for many animals too, not just humans. The key idea here is that behavior can be rote and automatic, or flexible and goal-directed. Most of the research on how kids understand others, called theory of mind, focuses on figuring out what others think, want, and believe. But what about when someone is just acting on autopilot? Do kids notice that? And does it matter if they do? This is where our research jumps in. Studies with adults show that they actually notice when people are acting automatically. In one study, nearly half of the adults surveyed said that many of their interactions involve someone acting automatically. They could tell just by watching short videos. And it's not just about noticing it, it can even change how adults feel about someone. For example, if an action seems habitual, adults might be a little more understanding if it causes harm compared to if it was deliberate. But what about kids? Do they pick up on this acting on autopilot behavior too? That is the big question here. We know that young children are still developing their understanding of things like attention and what others are thinking. For example, it is not until around age 7 that kids really understand that people have a continuous stream of thoughts. So we wanted to see if they could tell when someone's behavior was less about active thinking and more about just going through the motion. This is super important when we think about learning. Imagine a teacher who is just reading from a script or giving the same feedback to every student. No matter what they've done, does it matter if the teacher is really engaged or just going through the motions? Past research suggests that kids learn better from teachers they believe are caring and engaged. So, if a teacher seems automatic, that might affect how much a child wants to learn from them. So, the big questions for this study were, can kids between 5 and 10 years old tell when someone is acting automatically? And does seeing someone as automatic change how kids feel about their teaching? They ran 4 experiments to find out. In the first experiment, they wanted to see if kids could even notice automatic behavior. They showed children pairs of short videos from the internet. In each pair, adults had already rated one person as more automatic than the other. The researchers wanted to see if kids would pick the same person. They had about 120 kids aged around 7 to 10 years old. They showed them videos from categories like advertisements, cooking shows, and educational content. Importantly, for each pair of videos, adults had strongly agreed that one person was more automatic than the other. The kids were told that the researchers wanted to know how they decided who is more rote. Rote was explained as sounding like they're reading from a script, not really thinking, or like they've memorized what they're going to say. After watching a pair of videos, the child chose who they thought was more rote. What did they find? Well, to make sure the kids understood, there was a special comprehension check video. One part showed someone deliberately acting stiff and reading from a script, and the other part showed someone talking naturally. Thankfully, most kids, 74%, got this right, picking the clearly scripted one as rote. This means kids generally understood the idea. When they looked at the other videos, children agreed with the adult ratings about 58% of the time, which is better than chance. And the older the child, the more likely they were to agree with the adults. This suggests that this ability to spot automatic behavior develops as kids get older. Okay, so kids can start to notice this automatic behavior. But how do they do it? In the next set of experiments, they focused on teaching. They created videos of a teacher giving feedback to 3 different students on their drawings. The key was the feedback. In one condition, the teacher gave the exact same feedback to all 3 students. In another, the feedback was unique to each student. They also had a condition with similar feedback, which was somewhere in between. The kids watched these videos and then were asked 2 main questions. First, which teacher was not really thinking about the students and their drawings? And second, if you could pick one of these teachers to teach you something new, who would you want to learn from? The results were pretty clear. Most kids, around 75 to 80%, chose the teacher who gave the identical feedback as the one who was not really thinking. And they preferred to learn from the teacher who gave unique feedback. This shows that children, like adults, use repetitiveness as a cue that a teacher might be acting automatically and not really paying attention. Interestingly, they found that older kids were even better at making these judgments, meaning this ability also develops with age. Now that they knew kids could spot automaticity, they wanted to see if it made a difference. Did kids think automatic-seeming teachers were worse? They had children watch teachers who gave either identical feedback, similar feedback, or unique feedback. Then the kids rated how good the teacher was on a special scale, from really bad to really good. And here's the punchline. Children rated the teacher who gave identical feedback significantly lower than the teachers who gave similar or unique feedback. So, yes, kids associate automatic-seeming behavior, like giving the same feedback repeatedly, with worse teaching quality. Even younger children who might not be able to say why repetition is bad could still tell that it meant the teacher wasn't as good. They dug a bit deeper into this in the final experiment. They focused on the similar feedback condition, where the uniqueness of the feedback was a bit more subjective. They wanted to see if the degree to which kids perceived the feedback as similar directly linked to how they rated the teacher. They found something really interesting here related to age. Older children tended to rate the teacher worse when they perceived the feedback as more similar, just like adults do. This makes sense. More similar feedback often means more automatic behavior. But younger children surprisingly tended to rate the teacher better when they saw the feedback as more similar. This suggests that while younger kids might catch obvious signs of automaticity, their reasoning about more subtle cues and their evaluation of those cues changes a lot as they get older. It might even involve developing ideas about fairness or a preference for predictability. So, what does all this mean? Between the ages of 5 and 10, children become much better at noticing when someone is going through the motions. And crucially, they think less of teachers who seem automatic. This is a significant finding because it suggests that this ability to infer automaticity from others' behavior is a developing skill that is really important for how children learn and evaluate people, especially teachers. This research opens up a lot of new avenues. For example, with AI tutors becoming more common, understanding how children perceive automaticity in them will be key. Also, the connection between this ability and theory of mind or understanding what others are thinking is a really important area for future study. It seems like these abilities are intertwined. Think about it. If a teacher is just repeating phrases or not truly engaging with a student's unique needs, kids start to notice. And as they get older, they're more likely to judge the teacher as less effective. This isn't just about spotting rote behavior, it is about how children decide who to learn from and trust. It is like seeing the strings on a puppet. Once you see them, you can't unsee them, and it changes how you feel about the performance. This research is a step toward understanding how we all learn to read the subtle cues of engagement and thoughtfulness in others. And that is it for this study. If you found this fascinating, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more dives into the science of the mind, and let me know in the comments what you think. Do you notice when people are just going through the motions? I'd love to hear your thoughts.